What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the garage. Listen to them cicadas. They be screaming.
They chirping.
Geez, it's summer in Michigan, and usually we're out on the water, but right now we're building in the garage, and we wanted to use this time now to share with you some of our best practices, as it were, when it comes to rigging a kayak. So if you've ever gotten a base level kayak, there's nothing going on. You got your paddle, you got your kayak. You go out on the water, you wear your PFD, you go have fun, right? What if you want to add a bunch of accessories? What if you want to, do something that you're seeing a lot of these different YouTubers and tournament fishermen doing, and you want to add a graph, and you want to add lights, and you want to do all this other stuff? There are some things that you're going to want to know before you get into that kayak and you start cutting holes in it, because that's scary.
And I will say this is going to be beginner focused. So we know that not every single person is familiar with their electrical, has done a bunch of projects before, and it might just be a case of, I want to upgrade my kayak, but I don't necessarily know exactly what I want to do. These are going to give you, one, the tools that you're going to need and some of the tools you might want to consider getting before you get into a project. Save you 2 trips to Ace Hardware or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. We can make it a 5-tripper instead of a 17-tripper. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to get you in that headspace of how do you want to think about this before you start, like Jeff said, drilling holes. So we're going to give you that beginner's mindset of, well, how should I be thinking about this? What should I focus on first so that you can chunk away at this? We've noticed that kayak prices, they're getting higher and higher. Inflation's hitting. We got everything's getting more expensive. So we want to really make sure that you're thinking about this the right way, save you some money, save you some time, and then get you exactly the kayak setup that you really want.
And everything you see in this video can apply to any kayak there is. So this is not a budget versus expensive type video. It isn't a light build versus a heavy build video. This is a how would you do anything on any vessel video. And that's what we want to do. So lots of tips and tricks coming your way in this one. And why should you listen to us? Well, you should listen to us because we've done this about 45 times. On this channel, we have reviewed over 45 kayaks. We have modified many of those. And at this point, we're 2 kayaks right behind us. We're setting up for the Kayak Angler Magazine Yak-Offs. So if you haven't heard about those, this is the 2nd iteration of it. Last time, our boy Jake Suvak won with his Vibe Shearwater that was decked to the 9s. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're overbuilding these 2 kayaks. Well, overbuilding one of these kayaks underbuilding one kayak. So there's so many ways that you can approach this, but let's get right into it. First things first, where do you start? Well, you start with your canvas. Your blank canvas is your kayak. So you start with that. What we would always recommend is that you use it first. Don't do anything. Don't build it out. Just go out on the water.
Sit in it.
Sit in it. On the water, preferably, not just in a shop. Get on the water, paddle around or pedal around if you have a pedal kayak. If it's, already includes a motor like the EPDL, go motor around. Get comfortable in that thing before you even put a graph on it. You want to get an idea of like, where am I going to land fish? How am I going to sit or stand? How comfortable am I in this thing? Where would I want to potentially position this accessory or that accessory or whatever? So get a feel for your canvas before you drill holes in it.
And the reason we say that is because you're going to make some assumptions when you buy a kayak based on the marketing materials, based on your perception of that kayak, based on your buddy who told you to get it, who said it was great.
Other builds you've seen, tournament stuff,
and you're going to make some assumptions. You're going to think, well, all I need is a rod holder here and graphs here and it's going to be great. But what you aren't thinking about is, man, maybe the graph is like the 5th most important thing. You're starting to realize, God, the way that this kayak sits, I need to modify this seat. Or you're like, man, every time I put my rod here, I absolutely can't stand it. Or I thought I was going to be able to reach around and grab baits from this side. I can't actually do that because my rod holders are in the way. Whatever it happens to be, you're going to start finding those little things that bother you after, I would say, trip 5. For me, it's 5 trips. I think the minimum is 1. Absolute minimum is 1 full day, 6 to 8 hours of fishing. That's the minimum. I'd recommend like 3 to 5 trips because you're going to start picking up on some of those things, and that is going to be your guiding light and your principle for that rank order of, okay, what's the most important thing? I got to have some rod holders. Yes, that's simple, but those rod holders, all of a sudden, you maybe start doing that, and you're like, man, that really gets in the way of my crate. I actually can't load the crate and have rod holders on the crate. Or maybe you put the crate in, you're like, oh my God, I don't have room for the battery for the electronics. Now you're thinking about a different battery, different wiring setup. So I'd say it creates that list of like my most highest priority, and then you start working your way down to like convenience and extras. And I have found that that's a great way to do things. The other thing it's going to do, as you start thinking about, okay, like I think I want this type of crate, I want my battery to be at the front, not the back, so I get trimmed out, and you start refining that on maybe trip 3, maybe trip 4, you're gonna need to start thinking about how you're gonna run your wiring. If you've got any electronics in the kayak, it's the one thing that I think people forget about first is the wiring gonna run inside the hull, outside the hull? Am I gonna do a battery in the front or a battery in the back? And all of a sudden, that changes your entire build and dictates where you're gonna drill holes. The one thing you can't, or is very difficult to undo, is when you drill a big hole in a kayak. It can be hard to walk that back. So it's going to be the last thing that you want to do. Even with some quick connect, once you run wires, it's a real pain in the neck to run them back, even though you can easily plug the hole. So I definitely recommend electronics and hole drilling should be the last thing that you do.
So what you want to do first is you want to soft stage that kayak. So what I mean by that is use all your track mount accessories and keep the battery on top. So you can just run a power cable, a marine cable.
I got one right here, actually.
Great. So what you could do is you could basically take, let's say you wanted to, put a motor on there, a trolling motor or something like that. Something that doesn't technically require a ton of drilling. You can have your batteries just live on deck before you start running cable through the hull of the boat. So you can take marine wire. This is 6 gauge, I believe, no, 8. This is 8 gauge marine wire, which is typically what you're gonna wanna use. Make sure it's this coated, softer style. So this is going to intertwine a lot better and have better connectivity versus the very heavy copper rigid stuff. That is, it's all copper, that's just coated, but the heavy rigid copper is not gonna be ideal for connections. It just doesn't work that well. So that stuff, in our opinion, way better. And then you take a battery harness, something like this. You just have your positive, your negative, and then these are for the tower terminals right there. You can get all of these different components on Amazon separately, super cheap. And then you grab some Anderson connectors, is what we mean by that. This is the plug-in variety.
And they need to match.
They ought to be the same size. So this is a huge one, this is a little one. So pay attention to that just so you know which is which. And then you're gonna plug them in together and it's really easy to do.
The sizing differential is only important because of the size wire or cable that you're gonna put into it. So when I buy them in pairs. So if I go on Amazon, I go for, what I will type in is Anderson connector, and I type in the gauge wire that I want to use, and then I buy a male-female pair, which technically are the same. So you're gonna just make sure there are 2 in the one that you're buying, or just buy 2 of them, and you'll have everything that you need. And they come pre-connected too on Amazon. You can get them pre-wired and connected, so you're not messing with any of it on your own.
Yeah, this one's huge. It's actually 4 gauge wire because it's for a 48 volt battery that goes to this NT600 right there, gigantic electric motor. Anyways, so point is, leave it all on deck. Don't start drilling holes, don't run it all through, because this will give you an idea of where you want to stage that battery. Even if you have 10 feet of this running from one end to the other, it helps you work on weight distribution and placement. And then to continue on with soft staging, just take all of your track mount accessories like this and just utilize whatever track you have on your kayak. If your kayak does not have track, you can consider where you might want to have that. So again, that comes back to fish it 3 to 5 times without having anything on there, because eventually you're gonna have to add track. Highly recommended. If you have a kayak that is trackless, add track. Before you start drilling holes and having things just permanently in one position, just add a bunch of track, which is not that expensive, very easy to get. And then you can add your track mount accessories wherever the heck you want on your kayak, which is kind of cool. So you can always add, there's many different lengths of this. You can get it from Yak Attack, you can get it on Amazon. There's a trillion different types of them out there. But we would recommend that you get top load variety, which is the wide option there. So what that means is that you can just slot your stuff in from the top versus having to go in from one end, or you can get like the center mount too. So it just has to pop in one area. Trust me, it's a pain in the butt if you do anything but top load. So just get top load.
So I think that's the most important tip number 1. Don't do anything permanent until you've run the kayak, either soft staged it or run it with nothing on it and fished it at least 1 or 2 times, bare minimum. My recommendation would be 5 trips. Then you'll be really confident that anything you do, you're gonna be happy with. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, there are gonna be some situations where it's buy once, cry once. And you need to make a decision between buy once, cry once, or buy cheap. And there's 2 places that I think buy once, cry once is going to be worth it for you. For me, number 1 is going to be things it's basically anything permanent. So those tracks, they don't seem permanent. Once you put them on and you mount them, it's like an extra $10 or $15. I personally think getting the aluminum HD track is absolutely worth it. It's peace of mind, because when you're loading and unloading, when you have accessories on it, it bashes into stuff all the time, and that can actually rip out from your hull or trash your track.
I've done it.
That would be the one place where I'm like, just buy once, cry once, get the aluminum, get the HD, be really happy. Number 2 for me is gonna be your wiring. Do not go cheap on your connectors. Buy the Anderson brand and buy quality wiring. It's so frustrating to have to undo and redo wiring after the fact. Those are 2 areas where I highly recommend buy once, cry once.
So electrical wise, one thing that we learned over the years is that flush mounts are like really nice to have. So this is one area where we don't skimp on the electronics. Get a decent quality flush mount connector. I've used the cheap ones. What'll happen with a lot of the cheap ones is that they'll fit loosely. You get a loose connection. So I had an issue on a previous version I used on my NuCanoe Unlimited where I would plug in for the bow mount at the back of the boat and I'd plug it in, it was loose. So I'd be out on the water and all of a sudden it would just stop working. This one that I found on Amazon, all this will be linked in the description below, by the way. But this one has a super rigid connection. So it's locked in solid. You actually hear it like click in. So make sure you're getting good ones. We'll share this one from Amazon. For me, the buy once, cry once comes down to, yes, the electrical. I think you got to be smart about that, but also it's going to come down to the accessories that you use on your boat. So over the years, over all these builds, we have used a lot of the cheapest possible accessories, especially when we first got started, because there was no money and nobody was giving us any product, right? So now that we've used the cheap and the expensive, we tend to invest more into our accessories at this point. Like we want something that's going to hold up over time. I don't want to have to keep replacing it. You know, yes, it's a little bit more money up front, but in our opinion, they just hold up better. A great example is like Yak Attack Roto Grips.
Yes.
The Yak Attack Roto Grip is fantastic. The off-brand Roto Grips have never been good. We use the paddle holder version.
Terrible.
The Amazon one was completely loose and unusable. Essentially. And then the Yak Attack was fantastic. That's just one example. We could say too, like with your kayak crate, you know, spend up a little bit on that if you're comfortable doing so, because you'll be much happier in the long run. Rod holders will have tethers in them. They'll hold up a lot better. You know, I'm not suggesting that you have to buy a black pack. There's plenty of other ones that we've reviewed that are under $100 or around $100 too.
But don't go the super cheap route. If you're going to go, like I would just say, get whatever is going to get you through until you're ready to make the upgrade and get the one you want, and then get the one you want, because they last a long time, they apply to any kayak that you have in the future, and they are sort of the core for maintaining tackle storage, loading and unloading, and keeping your rod stored a lot of times. So that's another area where I would agree, buy once, cry once.
Last thing I would say is the motor. So in our opinion, like I'm okay with making an investment into a nice electric motor because I know it's going to last me a long time. I know it's IP67 rated. I know it's going to be fine if it gets wet or submerged, even if I drop it. And I know that it's going to run the way I want it to run and hit the speed I want to hit, as well as not be super loud. So there's a lot of like cheap motors out there. By all means, if you want to learn that way, you can go that way. Will it propel your kayak? Absolutely it will. Will it be you know, something that you're happy using all the time? Absolutely not. And I've used the cheap motors, and there's a lot of options out there, and they tend to be louder. They tend to have more maintenance issues, and they tend to not last as long. So that's just, you know, kind of where I'm at.
There's some things you can't undo. Tip number 2, think about buy once, cry once. It's a huge part of this.
Tip number 3, let's go into the tools. What do you actually need to do this? The good news is, most likely, you have 90% of this already at your house if you've ever done any project whatsoever. Things like a power drill, right? You really don't need too much. So we highly recommended, just use a power drill. This is what most people are gonna recommend. Why? Because you have the most amount of torque and speed controls on something like this. You can use an impact driver. People like Paul will use an impact driver for almost everything. I too, it was out on my kayak. I've been using it, right? I am also to blame. But this is where you are way more likely to strip out screws, to over torque the plastic, to have problems. So I don't really recommend this most of the time. Just use a power drill. And then you have all these torque settings up on top as long as you get a decent brushless drill. And then you also will have like speed variability there as well. So this should get just about everything done.
Some really basic tools that you're going to need. You're going to need an adjustable wrench. You're absolutely just going to need this. I would also say in the same breath, get yourself a decent socket set. I do recommend, if you have one, it's really nice having the deep and the standard, but these are going to be an absolute must.
You're going to need a razor blade. Everybody should have this. You're going to cut a lot of stuff, and it'll help with electrical too.
It also helps when you're carving out holes to make sure they're the exact dimensions that you want, because drills aren't always perfect. This is another one that you're absolutely going to need. Is you're going to absolutely have to have a hex wrench set. If you don't have an Allen set, you're not gonna be able to get the build done. It's gonna happen. You're gonna need one of these.
Yep. And all of the like elbow ones, they kind of get in the way. They're a pain in the to use. So we like the full set variety is really nice. I'd also recommend, if you can, these are actually very affordable, a ratcheting screwdriver set is fantastic. This has saved me so much time. I don't have to look for different sizes. They're all right here stored internally. And I think this was like 10 bucks at Menards. So Master Force brand. Works great.
You need a Phillips head and a flathead set though. Yep. This one is kind of, oh, absolutely. There's also a couple sleepers. So a marker. I use these nice ones because they write on concrete and on a lot of different plastics, and it holds a little better. But marking your holes on multiple materials, you're gonna need a marker.
Or a no-name brand marker.
Sure.
Use the marker that works for you.
But you do need a marker to write on a lot of these plastics. A lot of like pencils and pens, it just doesn't work. So you're gonna need a marker.
We talked about razor blades, but I also highly advocate for a chisel set. A couple different sizes is totally fine. You don't need to go crazy with it, but chisel will help you clean up, especially if you do like the flush mount Anderson connector like we showed you. You have to cut a rectangle into your boat. So when you need to clean up the edges, chisel works really well for that.
It's surprising how good of a job a chisel does. It's amazing.
Tape is another one that's really helpful. Painter's tape is extremely helpful when you want to mark off certain things. So adding lighting to this setup, I needed to have like a nice level squared off area, right? So you can just put painter's tape up, you make like an L shape, you put the drill hole in the corner. It just helps you place that.
The other nice thing about painter's tape is when you drill into painter's tape, all the plastic doesn't shoot out as much. So just like with wood, it keeps things from splintering a little bit. I never do it personally, but a lot of people do. And if you're gonna do it the right way, that is the right way.
And then you're gonna need electrical tape. And we're gonna talk electrical right now, but electrical tape is gonna help with a lot of your connections and covering things up and cleaning things up. And you're also gonna want a heat shrink kit. So this is from Amazon. Just grab a heat shrink kit. There's a lot of them out there, and then you have all the heat shrink you could ever use.
Now the heat shrink is going to be for any type of connection you make. So if you cut a wire and you attach something to it, which you're gonna do a whole bunch of times with electronics, you wanna put the heat shield at first, and then when you put some heat shrink on there, you apply some heat to that shrink, it completely waterproofs the connection and makes sure that were you to get submerged, were you to flip, you're not gonna short out any of your electronics.
Another thing that's nice to have is a lighter. So it doesn't have to be like a torch style lighter like this one is, but you need a lighter, something that will heat that heat shrink up. Heat that shrink. Something that'll heat the heat shrink up. A heat gun is also a great option. They have heat guns with like little target tips. That would be more ideal, so you don't melt like the rest of the wire, but you could also use a heat gun. They're also not too expensive. You can usually get them like 25, 30 bucks on Amazon.
Yeah, and the heat gun's great if you are in the north like we are. If you have cold plastic, you're doing something in the wintertime, you can heat up the plastic so that it's at that 80 degrees or higher temperature, so things adhere the way that they're supposed to as intended.
And don't shatter.
And we've talked a lot about drilling holes. This is an absolute must. The minimum I would recommend you use for sealing anything, so anytime I drill a hole with a screw in my kayak, or any kind of hole, I'm using this to seal the inside and or the outside. So this is goop, but they do have a marine goop. It's a little more flexible at higher temperatures, which is why I recommend this. I've used the regular, it's okay. I prefer this one. Another version is E6000. I actually have it in my truck right now. That one is harder. So a lot of things that are on the exterior of the hull, I like to use the E6000, but especially if you're all in the south, just go with the marine goop.
Marine goop all day long. While we're talking adhesives, another thing that is extremely helpful when you are placing things inside the hull and you don't want them sliding around, Velcro. Just get adhesive Velcro sets. I got this for like 15 bucks. I think it's like 40 pieces or something like that.
But for things like attaching battery, black boxes for your electronics, even like wiring harnesses, and this isn't permanent, which is great. So once you make that decision, you're like, I think this is where I want it. I'm on the inside of the hull, but I don't have a way to keep it up off the bottom so it's not rattling around or whatever. This is a great way to do that.
Yep, and then you can take it out, move it around if you want to.
Yep.
It's 3M adhesive, it can be removed. It's a pain in the butt, but it can be removed.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're gonna want some wire cutters. There's like, you're going to have to cut wire. This is the easy way to make the end terminal. So those are your common tools. Those are the things that a lot of us probably have or have easy access to. Here's a couple of tools that you probably don't have that we would recommend you at least think about getting if this is something you're gonna be doing often or if you wanna do a really high quality job.
So you're gonna want a crimping tool. So I got these on Amazon. It was 35 bucks for a 2-pack because it came with the stripper tool as well.
Now the stripper is the one that I actually think that most people will want, and then the crimper is the one that people think they won't want until they have to do a high quality crimp. I can't tell you on 6 and 8 gauge wire, it is very difficult depending on the connection type to have a really quality, sound, dependable connection that can handle and withstand a little bit of tension. Without that, you're gonna have a really hard time.
This thing is a game changer. You just want to make sure that it has all of the wire sizes that you're going to need for the different splices you'll use, right? So the crimper is designed to close the end to make sure the wire is connected to metal inside of a butt splice. So it's the splice that goes wire to wire. You're also going to want a kit of those splices if you're going to do a lot of electrical stuff.
I'll show you the one that I got.
While Paul is grabbing that, I will say what makes this so great is what you're hearing in there. So that allows you to really get a good crimp set on any of those splices without a lot of effort. So they do make manual ones, no spring involved in those, and they're a pain in the butt. You basically have to like sit on it to get it all the way down. This one is an assist, so it really helps you close those wires up, those connections up.
So there's 2 different kinds of butt connections, butt splices, connectors that I would recommend using. For lower gauge, I recommend these ones right here. So these ones are solder connectors. I'll open one up for you. This one happens to have a bunch of different sizes. What I like about these is they make a waterproof seal, and they do a really good job of it, and all you really need is a heat gun or a lighter, and you can make a really quality, very tension-friendly connection. So these are
small wires.
Yep, these are my favorite for the smaller. For the larger, so I'll say that like 6, even 8 gauge, your larger, especially for like trolling motors. I like these ones. These are, I don't even know what these are called technically, but they're like a brass connector. And what you do is you put in a sheath around your wire, you put wire into both ends with the sheath, and then you screw these down with an Allen key. And that is the strongest connection that I know of. It's the one that I depend upon the most. And it's also the one that, in this case, wow, this is a freaking mess. But these are the ones that I just feel like I really, really have a lot of faith and trust in. So I have this whole kit, and I use these honestly whenever I'm doing anything for a trolling motor.
Or you can just use standard waterproof splices. So you got these, basically you crimp down the ends. You can heat this up, melt it down, but typically you just do heat shrink around it. So obviously that is an option too, and the cheapest one.
And that's where that crimper tool is so important. I promise you, you will regret depending on something you did with a wrench. This is so far superior.
Superior! Since we're talking electrical, when you're running wire, there's a bunch of ways you can do it. Now, this is where there's a huge argument on the internet, which is hilarious to me. There's technically no wrong way to do it. There's just a lot of ways to do it. You have the option of taking your wire, you can tape a wrench or something heavy or weighted to it on one end, and then you can tip your kayak. So take it off of these stands like we have, tip one end down or hold one end up, and it'll just, the weight of that will drag your wire to the other end of the kayak.
We call that the gravity method, right? So you're basically just using gravity on the old wrench or whatever you did to take things from the front to the back.
Yep, so all we're doing is we're taking the wire from one end to the other, which you will do a lot if you're rigging motors. So if I'm running a stern motor, I'm offsetting the weight with the battery at the front. If I'm running a bow motor, I'm offsetting the weight with the battery in the back. That's not always true, that's just mostly true. Now, you got the gravity method. The other option is you can run a magnet, which is what we prefer to do most of the time. So you get this flexi coil with a bullet at the front. That bullet is magnet to magnet situation there. So you take a heavy duty magnet like this, you take this little piece right here, and then you just tape your wire to this end here.
Or
and
hook
then,
it if it's got a hole.
Which most of the time I've found it doesn't, so I just tape it to it.
Yep.
But you can do whatever works, and then you just run that through a hole, and you take the magnet to the outside of the hull of your boat, and then you drag it all the way to the end, and you can hear or see that wire. You're kind of like slowly feeding that wire in. It'll take it to one end. We personally prefer this. We think it works really, really well.
The reason I like it is because I choose where in the kayak I'm running the cabling, and I know it's going to be on the very outside of the kayak instead of somehow getting snagged in the middle. Sometimes you end up using way more cabling than you need, or it goes in the way of something else that you are trying to use on the inside. So like Jeff's kayak, the Old Town Sportsman EPDL, has a whole battery area in the center. There's a big tray in there. I don't want the wire anywhere near that. I want it to the outside, so you can run it to the outside.
So I grab the magnet on the outside and I drag it on the outside.
Or if you wanted to run it through the center on the bottom, you can actually just put the cabling down and run it through the center. The other thing too is some kayaks don't have front hatch or mid hatch or rear rear hatch access. This is a great way to run cabling right to a pinpoint spot and get that cable where it's supposed to be without having access. So that takes care of that problem as well. The last thing you can use is what we would call fish tape. It's basically either a pole, a semi-flexible set of poles that you can strap together or screw together, or it's almost like a heavy-duty tape measure that you can just roll through. That works okay. It's better than just the gravity method, but it's not quite as good as the magnet because it's not as precise. But they all have their own uses. We prefer the magnet.
Technically, you could use tape measure too if you wanted to. You could use an ugly stick. We've done it a bunch of times. Yep. Old broken fishing rods, they work too. Yep. The point is, there's no wrong answer. No. There is definitely, though, a more convenient, easier method than the other ones. Last up on tools, something that we would recommend with a lot of safety involvement would be what we like to call the terror tool, which is basically an oscillating saw. Multi-tool is another good name for it, but basically you get these interchangeable blades like this. They have a description on them, so this is for wood, this is the wrong one, but you can get this for different materials that you would want to be cutting into, and then...
Including metal.
Get in there, guy. So basically you plug that in, you hit this thing, it's vibrating very quickly. This is just a very easy way to cut those bigger pieces out.
So that is our list of tools that you would use. We kind of went from most common things you already have all the way down to maybe I'm going to be doing 2 or 3 kayaks, or I have a really unique problem, or I'm doing a lot of electronics. We kind of went from most general to most specific. You do not need every single one of those tools, but a lot of those tools you will find, especially the earlier ones, you are going to have. So borrow them, buy them, don't steal them, but you're going to need them.
I mean, steal them if you have to.
Not on this channel.
Don't do that. All right, so let's get to actually building out the kayak. We talked about empty testing it. We talked about soft staging it. We talked about the tools that you're gonna need to actually do the job, and now let's talk about the job. So we get into the kayak, get them laid out on a stand is what I'd recommend. So you can use something simple, collapsible, like the yellow fins here from Suspend. So you have these nice tubular designs here. It'll hold any kayak you need, as well as all your tools. You can get the side tables, you can get pockets on there. Hyper convenient.
The racks.
Yeah, there's actually racks that you can put in on the bottom too. You'll see as we're walking around these kayaks, but that allows you to throw the big stuff, like my batteries are down there, extra seats, all of that. So just really convenient. The other option is you could DIY it. We've done a couple of videos on our channel on how to build something like this. Extremely heavy duty, can hold multiple kayaks, is easy to work off of, and is also a nice stepping stool. So when I need to like work across, I'm like always just up in the grill of this kayak all over the place. And you can even sit up on it. So if you want to like hop, you can do that on this too, by the way. But you hop up on there and then you can kind of get your layout dialed in and all that stuff. And you can do a lot of work in like the mid area of the kayak. So
you can also load and unload from your truck. You put these on casters. So this one's on wheels, so are these. And they can help you move your kayak around in and out of your truck when you're fishing and stuff like that. And if you don't have a kayak on the bottom, it can store your crate, even your rods and reels, whatever you want down there, which is very convenient.
Yep, so get it on a stand. That way you can operate this thing, because I've done builds on the ground. It's not fun. It's terrible, especially if it's like in your garage on the ground, you're like kneeling on concrete. Not fun, not recommended.
If you're over the age of 29, get a stand.
If you're over the age of 18, get a stand. Like, let's be real. Those joints aren't going to hold up forever. I know you think you're invincible. You're wrong. All right.
Yeah, facts.
So let's get into it. So when we're actually building on these things, let's walk around the kayak real quick. So we're going to switch cameras. Let's walk around. We'll tell you guys what we typically do when we go through our builds.
Switch them. All right, so a couple things you want to consider. We already talked about, hey, do not wire anything until you have to. And this is the reason. If you go in here, couple of tips. We talked about these Anderson connectors, these quick connectors. These are so important because I do not want the battery in here at all time. I want it in here when I'm using it, and then when I'm unloading, loading, when I need to charge it, I want to be able to remove it and charge it very easily. You cannot beat that connection. Waterproof connection, I want to undo it, I'm undoing it. Now this battery, when I'm not using it, can come out. So if I want to paddle the river, I don't want that battery in there, that's ridiculous. I just want it there when I'm using it with the motor. So boom, that takes care of that problem and makes that so simple and clean. Another thing that people tend to forget is this cabling is like not attached all the time. In this case, it's not. I just use 2 zip ties. That means it's staying where I want, and when the kayak is loading and unloading, this thing isn't sliding all the way back and irretrievably lost for the rest of time. But this also, running this cable means that I'm trimmed out. Trimmed out means that I'm balanced. So if I had this battery back here under the seat, which I used to, all the weight, me, the battery, and the motor were all in the back, and I'm riding like this, pushing water instead of running like this, sliding over the water. Let's move on to the back. You gotta think a little bit about the space. Your brain goes, I want the biggest crate possible all the time. That is incorrect. You want the most efficient use of space possible. In this smaller kayak, I can fit a 13 by 16. However, it eats up all my space here. And if I move it all the way back, I have nothing left here for the front. But with a 13 by 13, I have enough room for up to 6 rod holders if I want to. 5 is the perfect number, and 4 is really what I'm probably gonna go with most often. But if I had the 13 by 16, I actually wouldn't be able to do that because the rod holders are either gonna get in the way here, or the rod butts are gonna get in the way here, and I can't sink them down. They're just gonna fall out at some point. So, get the crate you need, not just the biggest crate that fits in your tank well, something to think about. Another thing is your underseat storage. Every single kayak utilizes this underseat storage a little bit differently. This kayak does a great job of having space for day boxes here, but because the way I'm using this, there's really not a lot of access here because of the way that Crescent ties these seats down, meaning most of the stuff that goes under here is gonna be the stuff I'm not gonna use that often. So like a scale is something you can keep under here. Maybe your bottle for using the restroom, your portable restroom can go under there. Maybe your lunch, something you're only gonna grab maybe 1 to 5 times a trip, but you're not constantly reaching into, like your baits. And then also, you can use something like a bag for things like line, tools, and maybe like beverages. You can get away from having to use a rod holder. So you can just put it on the back here, and that just doubles your storage, but not in an inconvenient place. It puts it in a convenient place. Lastly, Jeff talked about this earlier, the track that's on your kayak is not what you're limited to. There's actually there's a decent amount of real estate here, 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 wherever you want, where you can put more and more tracks. Even over here in this slotted area, you can put some more tracks to just do whatever you need to do and mount more accessories as needed. So something to think about. Just be careful when you do it, plan it out, think about what you're gonna put there, do a dry fit, do a test run, and then when you're ready, add the track that you need. Those are a couple of the key things you wanna do, especially in a smaller build, to make sure that you're making the most efficient use of room, money, and effort. Now let's take a look at Jeff's kayak. So we have here the Old Town ePDL 120 Pro. This is more of your, yeah, let's go ahead and put everything in the kayak.
Let's build it up.
And you would think with a kayak that big, like, oh man, I could put everything in there. It's gonna be easy. It has a limited track. You still gotta be careful. You wanna be efficient and you wanna make the most out of your space, even with a big build, and Jeff's gonna give you some tips for how to do that in a big tourney style build.
So this is how a kayak looks when you're building like I am. Another option, look over there, you can get the suspends.
Oh, look at that. It's a lot
cleaner. There's actually side pockets that you have too, so you can put all your tools in there. I tried to put everything on those suspends. That doesn't work. Do a table on one side, do a pocket on the other side, and you're gonna be happy. Thank me later for that. Actually, thanks Suspense. I made it. You're welcome. I made that.
They also have low locking casters, which is super clutch because when I do this, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yep. I do love my stand, and I kind of need to put tables on the side of this, I guess. But yeah, this is I DIY'd this like 6 years ago. Still going strong.
Rock steady.
Yep. Look, it holds all those motors too. I just transfer out motors.
That thing only weighs 50 pounds.
Hey, be gentle with her. Thank you. All right, so we'll go stern to bow on this one. Why not? I think it's a good time too to call out some 3D printed stuff. So you can actually get a lot of kayak accessories. Things you think you want, they exist. They've been 3D printed by somebody. There's a couple brands we use a lot. Especially when it comes to Old Town, we like Navarre Fishing, so go check out Navarre. It's run by one guy, Nick. He's crushing it. He makes really cool upgrades for Old Town specifically, as well as some Hobie upgrades and a few other brands, but he kind of keeps to that ecosystem. There are other companies out there like Yak Hobby, where there's gonna be a bunch of Yak Hobby pieces on this, including these were pretty clutch. This is a little wing nut that just basically allows you to tighten up the rudder on the fly. That's cool. There's a rudder handle extension. It's called the crusher knob that you can get on there. They also created washers that go into this that makes this a lot easier to use without having to do this stupid rudder tightening thing that Old Town has, because it just scrapes back and forth on this.
This manages the tension.
It's super annoying for rudder tension. You can actually just add a washer, tighten it up, and you're good to go. It's super easy to do. So there's a lot of that stuff that exists, but coming on to the back here, when we're talking about like kayak builds and modifications, companies like Old Town are going to put out like this through hole wiring piece right here. It's really nice. It's convenient. It is my least favorite way to rig wires for stern mount motors and bow mount motors, right? Because what has to happen here is you have to have that Anderson connector. The wire is sticking out and just kind of flopping around all the time. So I would much rather go to this flush mount option right here. All you have to do, cut a little rectangle and add some goop, and then screw this thing down. You're done. So this thing is super watertight and it closes when not in use. And then it creates just this easy flush mount connector for my batteries. So it's just a really nice option to have.
One quick tip for those, they come with screws to screw them in. I use bolts with washers. It creates a stronger connection. It makes me feel way more safe about yanking that thing on and off because it's supported by more than just a couple of screws. So that's just me. I had them laying around and it actually made a huge difference.
And I just use the screws, so you'll survive. Yeah, you'll be fine. So moving on up, there is a lot of lighting in this. Now I'm overdoing the lighting on purpose because we're entering this into a kayak build-off competition. You gotta soup it up. You gotta go all Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious style on this thing. But it is something to consider because it can be really convenient. So if you go out early morning, late evenings, night fishing, and you wanna be able to find things and also not get killed by other boaters that are out there, you're gonna want nav lights. So you can put navigation lights on the front. We've used a bunch of different ones. We use the battery ones from Guardian Angel. I think they're fine. I didn't love the battery life of them. They died on me a lot. So I don't know, that's just me. If maybe it's my experience and Paul's experience too. He was nodding his head. So we've both had that experience. So we're out on the battery ones. I like the hardwired ones. They are always going to be the best option, the most reliable option.
They're brighter.
And they're much brighter because they're powered by a much bigger battery. So you can throw those in there. We're using the Yak Power nav lights on this, as well as the interior lights and the button lights from Yak Power. Huge shout out to them. They have a lot of great products, including the controller that runs this whole thing. So when you want to run electronics, so I got a fish finder, I've got interior lights here, I've got button lights in the back, I'm gonna have a tank well light in the back on both sides, a whole LED strip on either side, and then I've got my nav lights up front, I've got a bow mount motor. There's a lot of things going on, so what you end up doing is you get what's called like the Yak Power Control Center, essentially, and we have the 8-panel switcher, but they also have a 5-panel switcher, which is more like cost effective. It's like 150 bucks for that kit. The 8-panel is quite a bit more expensive, and the I think it's 250 for the complete kit of that, but it comes with everything you need to wire an entire kayak battleship style like we have right here. So you have the main unit in here, which has buttons that you can press on that as well, so I can actually power it on right there. And then you have a wired unit up here, so you can turn this one on as well, and then you got all these buttons that you can use. So if I power this on, I can hit these bright blue lights that probably just blinded you right there.
Yeah, I can't see.
We've got our nav lights up here. And then we've got our button lights over here, which I think is it M? Nope, hang on. Is it, nope, hang on.
Your biggest problem is remembering what button does what thing.
Well, I just wired this yesterday, so I don't know what the buttons are yet. But yeah, so I've got all my lights going right now, which is neat. And it's all powered from this or your app, or you can set it up inside. But that way, when I'm out on the water, I can just reach up here and be like, all right, we don't need all that stuff anymore. Let's turn all these off.
Well, the nice thing too is, like Jeff talked about, he's got all this stuff. You also can have your graph on there, so you can have the graph on and the lights off, or everything on, or just the nav lights and none of the interior, or just the interior and nothing else, or power the truck, like whatever you want, you have complete control.
There's a lot of options, including right over here. There's an external plug-in, so you cut a little hole, or you can even just drill with like a 1/2-inch drill bit, and you just shove that sucker in there, and then it's got the watertight outer seal. You can throw some goop in there and 2 screws, and you're done. And now I can plug this in, or I can unplug and remove this phone charger, phone mount from Yak Power if I want to, which is kind of neat to have. And then when it's not plugged in, you can just cover it up like that with a weatherproof cover. So that's cool. And then interior, in here, you're gonna see all of this mess. I haven't cleaned this up yet. Don't yell at me. But essentially what you're gonna have is you're gonna have your battery. In this case, we prefer to use Nocqua. This is our go-to battery company. These are waterproof. They come with this very convenient little case here that you can Velcro around a lot of different surfaces, so it can hang wherever you want, or you can get this 3D printed box from Yak Hobby, which is what we prefer to do. And it's all vented too, so water can drain out there. If water got in your hull, you throw your Velcro that we showed you earlier, goes like that, and then you can place these wherever you want. Super convenient. You got a lot of options for your power. So you can run a big battery or you can run little batteries like this. You can run one or you can chain them together. Now you got two. You're gonna want to learn electrical a little bit here, you guys. So we've got a voltage regulator. We've got fuses. And you're gonna wanna have those chained into this to protect both your batteries, your controller equipment, and the actual accessories that you are running. If you don't want a lot of feedback issues on your graph, that's where you want the voltage regulator to make sure that that graph is always getting the appropriate voltage and not over or under, and that's where you get graphing errors.
It's usually gonna be under with the 12.
Yep. So, and then other than that, you're gonna see in the Yak Power here, they've got all these Yak Power plugs, so you can plug every single thing in there. We've got your lighting cables, usually super long. So we're gonna clean this up, we're gonna get this all out of the way, but it's just something to get an idea, to get the concept of how this wiring actually works. And then we go up to our pass-through. So this is what the pass-throughs actually look like. You pop this out, there's actually a rubber insert here, looks like that. And on the back side, you see this. So this is how Old Town does theirs. You basically just cut the thin area of plastic out there. You cut a slot in the side and you just wrap that around your cable, as you'll see over here I've done for my fish finder. And then what I like to do, I didn't talk about it earlier, but I like to take this, is actually from computers. You take this cable wrap housing, super cheap, comes in big long rolls, and it comes in a lot of different inch diameters, right?
Colors too.
And different colors if you want to really deck this thing out, right? So I go with usually 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch, and that'll cover, 2, or even the 3/4 will cover like 3 cables. So if I have a bunch of these.
Here's your 3/4, I think.
Yeah, so this is 2 cables inside of there, fits perfectly. I could fit another one if I wanted to, but it just wraps the cables up and I think it looks nice. You throw a little zip tie around the ends of it, it stays on forever and it looks cool. So I like to go that way with my cables. Last thing I would say, just in terms of staging this out, getting prepared, just to close out the video here really, is take the seat out when you're doing all this work. Take everything off of this, right? Make it a completely blank canvas. So my seat is over there. Most seats come off. I can't think of one that doesn't right now. But you take the seat off and that just gives you a lot of space to work within your kayak, which really helps out. Other than that, I think we covered everything, so let's wrap this up. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that was extremely helpful for you. If you're in the market for a kayak that you want to deck out or customize or DIY or do a whole bunch of stuff too, we hope that we were able to help you get some foundational information and knowledge that can help you get that done. Listen, we get it. It is scary at first. We've done it enough times at this point, we're kind of like, whatever. All we recommend is like the classic information of measure twice, drill once.
Measure 4 times, drill once.
Maybe 7 times if you have to. So yes, it's scary, but if you measure a whole bunch of times, you really plan out like we've been imploring that you do, you will be fine. But have some fun with this. There's a lot of ways you can do it. There's endless ways to customize your kayak. You can make it exactly what you want it to be. So we see new kayaks drop and we're like, yeah, it looks that way, but I can do whatever I want to this. Like, we just fully custom rig this sucker out and it's a lot of fun.
It's also a way to save a ton of money because a lot of the new kayaks have all this really cool stuff in it and you can actually do, sometimes you want to pay for all of that. You want like one of those cool features.
Yep.
You can get an older kayak, you can add a couple of things to it and bingo bongo, you save like $4 grand. We're talking about thousands of dollars in potential savings, which is so important. Again, we talked about the price of things going up. If you want to defray that cost, DIY is one great way to do it.
So get on the marketplace, get on the used market, go find whatever base canvas you want to work on and then do some of the stuff we talked about today. You can do anything you want. It's a blast. Hopefully you have fun with it. Let us know what you're building in the comments below and drop some comments about things we missed. Any tools that you think are more required or recommended that we didn't talk about today or any other tips that you want to share down below. Everything we talked about is going to be in the description in this video, so go on down there, click on anything, and hopefully we can help you find stuff you're looking for or things that we mentioned. Yep. We're probably linking a lot of Amazon product right now, so go check that out if you want to. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, smash that like, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.